Hello, my nonprofit whispers out there. Thanks for joining us again for this following episode. This one I am really excited about because, we all have dreams. We all have things that we want to accomplish. But this one's really important because it talks about effective communication. So now you've created a mission statement and you're excited because you're clear on the problem that you're solving. But now you've got to get people on board to buy in. So whether you're recruiting people for your board, recruiting volunteers, or raising that money, that's very important, you're gonna need to hear this conversation between Jim and I. So I'm Erika Gerena. Jim Dempsey is my co-host, and you're having, between the both of us, over 50 years of experience. And so we made the mistakes so that you don't have to. So without further ado, here we go. Welcome back, folks. So great to see you guys. Thanks for joining with us, with Jim and I, on this journey here at the Nonprofit Whisperer. I hope that you've been gleaning from and learning, and this has been helpful for you. Please let us know if it is in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Now we're going to get into effectively communicating your mission. And this one I love because it's talking about the selling, but it's also talking about the inviting and aligning people with the purpose of the organization. And this is kind of the fun part. So you've put in the work, you've created a mission statement, you've unpacked that, you've done some assessment, you've done some research, and now you're kind of at the place where you're like, all right, I am ready to invite people into this journey. But before we jump into that, Jim, you want to give us a quick recap of what it was in a previous episode of creating a mission statement?
Yes, absolutely. And, in our last episode, we talked a little bit about the mission statement being your plumb line, being the statement that really emphasizes why your organization exists. And remember, we talked about last time, we talked a little bit about that it should include who your audience is, who you're trying to reach with the need. Talked about the ways that you serve that audience, and then what is our outcome? What do we hope to accomplish with our organization and the direction we're headed? So those kinds of things are so important. We also talked about simplicity, that it's so important for us to keep a mission statement simple. You talked about the mission statement of TED, spread ideas. I mean, that's so simple. Or I talked a little bit about Ritz-Carlton, that ladies and gentlemen, serving ladies and gentlemen. It's an easy mission statement to convey throughout your organization. We also talked about the importance of conveying that message throughout the organization, because if everyone's not on board, then that you could be headed in different directions. So I'd really encourage all of our listeners and viewers to go out to our last episode if you need to unpack a mission statement, what's the important components of that, because I think we were able to really address a lot of important elements. So we'll give you an opportunity to be able to go back to that broadcast after this as well.
Yeah, and that's great, Jim. And then, of course, don't forget the importance of your own personal mission statement and how that ties into the work that you do in your nonprofit, the nonprofit you lead, the one you work for, or the nonprofit you're raising money for, you're creating partnerships for. There's some really great examples about that there. And I want to challenge you kind of as a takeaway, come up with your own personal mission statement. And so that's going to help you tremendously just in the trajectory of life, not even just your career, but of your life. It's really helpful. Being able to really define your why is really very helpful. And I have found it to be helpful for me, for sure. When you do formal events, when you do gala events to fundraise, my goodness, messaging and communication and effectively communicating your mission is literally the most important thing around a fundraising event or a donor appeal, or how you recruit volunteers, or how you hire people. You have got to get comfortable with how you tell the story of your mission. And so this is really, really important. One of the things that I want to bring in kind of as a Latina, that has been very, very big for me, and that I always work with clients on and organizations that I've worked with, is the importance of having the importance of when you're designing the visuals of your invitations and appeals and marketing materials and website, is making sure that the people that you're serving, that it actually reflects on those visuals that you're doing, the intentionality to be diverse and inclusive, and have different representation. So if you are a nonprofit serving homeless. This is a client that I've worked with in the past. You know, being intentional to not have pictures of just what people imagine homelessness to be, but what you know the reality of it is, and really making sure the responsibility of effectively communicating your mission in a visual way that is in alignment with your mission. And so that it should move people towards better understanding what you actually do and who you actually serve, is very helpful. And as a volunteer, if I don't see people that look like me involved in your brochures or website, I have to ask myself, is that a place where I belong? And is it a place for me? And so make sure that when you're looking at your brochures, your marketing, your appeals, your gala invitations, all your website, your social media, make sure that it reflects that which you want to see in your organization. So that is kind of like one of my number one like pet peeves, and especially for organizations that are serving the globe. It is important that your staff are reflective of that. The people you hire, you could see the world coming through your organization. Any single time that I'm experiencing your organization, I'm able to experience the world that you're serving. And you'd be surprised how many people don't pay attention to that. But Jim, what's
Well, in
another
fact,
point you want to touch on effectively?
yeah, in fact, Erica, that's so important and so true. You know, the old adage that picture is worth 1,000 words really is important in this aspect. Making sure that marketing is just so vital to a good communication strategy and a good marketing strategy. And if we'll communicate your mission, even better.
Yeah, this day and age too, like where digital media is like, it's not like how it used to be. The first time someone heard about your organization was through the mail. And so you had much more words, much more visuals. You could take your time. Now it's like you have less than 3 seconds to capture somebody's attention. And in a very competitive world where everyone's constantly putting out a bunch of images, make sure that yours is telling the right story. And I remember hearing a quote, and unfortunately, I can't remember exactly what it is, but it said that nonprofits' largest issue is just they don't get the story right. They don't tell their story
So true.
properly, where everyone feels like they're a part of your organization. And you can do that through effective communication, right? So, Jim, can you walk us through a little bit of like, what are some of the things that you do when working with folks where you're advising them? What are some of the things that you ask them to do?
Well, certainly, they've got to get a good grasp on their cause and why is it that they exist. And of course, we've talked about in past broadcasts the whole idea of what's the problem that your organization was created to solve. It's important that you look at as you're reaching out to your audience, who are the logical givers and who are the emotional givers, and you want to make sure that you're not overemphasizing one over the other. From the logical side of things, is you're understanding your cause and the problem that you have. Make sure you've got good statistics. Make sure that you allow those people to check off the box, those logical givers, those people who give because they feel like you've done your homework, you understand your cause, understand what the problem is that you're trying to solve. And so it's so important that you've got a good grasp on that. And then again, getting back to what are the solutions? Are we really doing what we are promising? Are we really utilizing? Are we doing, in a sense, are we doing the right things, and are we doing the right things the right way?
Mm.
Those are so important for the success of our organization. So making sure that your programs, your projects, your strategies are all focused on the right things. And again, focus also on what are the results, what are the outcomes. Certainly individuals are going to give because of your outcome, but again, your organization has a mission, and that mission also will include outcomes. So are you achieving those overarching outcomes, or are you at least making steps towards overcoming? So it's important that you really evaluate your organization and the things that you're doing, your strategies and your outcomes, for sure.
So basically, Jim, what you're saying is for people to define the problem in a very clear way,
Yes.
and just be able to unpack that and make sure that the data that you find backs up what that problem is. And then, of course, how do you as an organization solve that? And that's the story you're going to be telling over and over and over again. And we
Right.
assume that people are listening and they'll listen all the way through to what it is we're saying, because what we have to say is just so brilliant. But the reality is that's not true. I mean, most people tune in and out, in and out. Some of you are doing that right now. I hope not, but some of you are. And so that happens typically, right? And so they're not going to catch everything. So that's why you might think, oh, we already say that. We always say that. We have to find a different way of saying that. I'm like, no, just keep saying that over and over. People need to know that. I think along with that, I would add that to clearly define the needs within the organization. What do I mean by that? So let's say I'm trying to recruit volunteers. I should be very clear on what it is that I need volunteers to do, and how, when they do that, it moves us towards accomplishing the mission of the organization. And so defining the needs, you need to be able to know the problem, definitely, that your organization is solving, and say that very specifically, but also the needs that you have. So whether it's for your donors, whether it's for volunteers, whether it's on social media, you're letting people, constantly educating them and informing them of the problem over and over again, but also the needs. So that's kind of the need part, is the invitation for people to join you in the mission. So whether that's through, serving through volunteerism, or whether it's through giving or serving on your board, um, whatever that is, be very clear in the needs that the organization has, and how, when that person fills that need, how it moves you towards accomplishing the mission that you have. So that's definitely another part. I think oftentimes people only focus on that one side, and then it's kind of like lopsided. So depending on where you come into an organization, your experience is very, very different. And I know that you've seen this a million times. I see it all the time
Mm.
with organizations, as small or as large. It's just like, depending what department you come in through, you have a very different story to tell about that organization. So
Well, and Erica, your message needs to be very clear and concise, and frankly, it needs to be simple, easy to communicate, because I've just seen so many organizations that, my eyes start to roll in the back of my head, because it's so either intellectual or so long or so arduous trying to communicate who they are, that I know that nobody's going to want to volunteer, nobody's going to want to give, nobody's even going to want to darken their doorstep as somebody who's has a need, because they've made the organization and solving the problem way too complicated. We a term that's used so often now in this day and age is our elevator speech.
yeah.
Being able to communicate from floor 10 down to the lobby who we are and what we do. And so you've got to really focus in on making sure that your messaging is simple, concise, easy for everyone in your organization to communicate, because every person in your organization is a representative. Every person is
That's
an
right.
ambassador, from the
That's right.
person who answers the phone, the receptionist, all the way through to your board member. So,
Yeah.
so important.
And make sure that it's compelling, and it's inviting.
Mm,
We talk about this in writing appeal letters and all of that. Like, don't be that guy. Who's that guy? The guy that writes the letter and is like, if you don't give $20,000, we're going under.
I know. We're going to shut the doors if you don't give. Yeah,
And for some reason, people equate urgency
I know.
with like that's going to move, and the motivation of people who give and people who volunteer, it's like shifting into crisis mode, and
Yeah.
that's not what moves people.
Urgency should be missed opportunity, but not, we're urgency being panic
Yeah.
and last ditch effort to keep the doors open.
Yeah, nobody wants to give. I've heard this all the time from you, to a sinking ship.
Right.
It's like, that's not exciting, guys. Like, don't be that guy that
Mhm.
communicates your mission in that way, because it's not compelling. It's not going to work. And I have had this happen so many times where people are just like, oh my gosh, I wrote the letter. And I'm like, show me the letter. Because they'll say nothing. I said, did you get anything from that? They're like, no, they didn't give anything. So now they're personally offended, right? Because they're like,
Right.
they don't care. I'm dying out here. We're going to have to shut our court. But they don't understand that any good investor is always looking at the health of an organization. And so how you communicate is very important. And here, just kind of to put it through different lenses, in my work, I do community engagement. This is why this is important. Effectively communicating your mission. You want to invite people into joining something that's going to be exciting and fun. We forget how important the word fun is. We want things to be fun for people. It's not boring and serious all the time. Like, this is great work and it's rewarding work. So sell it as that. But that's the community engagement piece. Now, when you're doing strategic partnerships, you want to make sure that you're effectively communicating, because as stated in a previous episode that you can go back and see, depending on the mission statement of the organization and the mission statement of a corporation, there can be some wonderful alignment and opportunities there to get resources, to get volunteers, and who knows what else could come from that. But I've seen that over and over again. I've given you the example of the diversity and inclusion and belonging piece, which is just the intentionality to invite all people into the work that you're doing, and not to exclude people out and make them feel like they belong and they are part of this winning team. That's definitely how you want to convey that. And then, of course, as Jim gave you examples in fundraising and development. And so I want to encourage you definitely to do the work and trying to effectively practice this over and over again. I think the other thing that I really want to be very clear on is what you end up sharing as your mission statement, and then how you're telling that story is very important, that it carries over into the practice of what your work is. And if it does not happen, I've seen this a lot now in 2020, a lot of organizations making statements that were not in alignment with their mission statement and their values. And so when it came down to the practice, a lot of employees, communities, and people were very disappointed because it didn't carry over, because they lacked the ability to effectively communicate their role in solving a problem, or their role in wanting to advocate and bring support of a thing. They lacked doing that in their own context. And so they came outside of their world for the sake of, and then now it's not showing in practice, and it's actually worse for your organization. You think you're doing something good and you're causing a lot of harm and a lot of questioning. Now you have to explain yourself to all of your constituents and all of your different audiences, because you lack the ability to clearly, effectively communicate your mission in a way. Whatever it is that you're trying to speak, always make sure, I tell clients over and over again, mission, values, mission and values. Whenever you're going to create a statement, respond to something, make sure it's through that filter, because it's the only way you can ensure that it will come through in practice throughout your organization. So that's kind of my last tip on that. But I'm so excited to continue on, and we will continue the conversation. So here it is again, Jim and Erika, Nonprofit Whisperer. See you next time.
Take care.